Hi, happy Tuesday. I told you that I would be back today. It's been day 2 of Clear Path Medical, and it's been a really good day. Yesterday we were all just kind of discombobulated. Even though we've been doing this for a long time and been doing it for a long time together, it was out of sorts because we had some new things going on I even found myself wondering what it was I doing in the middle of a physical exam yesterday because it just felt out of sorts. But today we felt much more in our rhythm, and I think it's going to continue to get that way. Just as a reminder, tomorrow, Wednesday, which is Wednesday, and then Thursday of this week, we are offering our open clear path medical specials. So you can get a MIC-B shot, which is those amino acids and vitamins to help boost energy, boost immunity, help with fat burning. You can get that for $10. You can also do a vitality boost session for $10. If you want to do the vitality boost, I highly recommend you give the office call. Phone number's the same, 4499, so that Marley can put you on the schedule because it's starting to fill in other places. People are really taking advantage of that $10 deal. And can you blame them? It's such an amazing thing to help with youthfulness, to help with clearing sinuses, to help with nerve damage, muscle damage, all that kind of stuff. So if you want to experience it before you do a buy-in type thing, or if you just want to try it once to say you did, give Marley a call tomorrow and she'll get you on the schedule. So those are the opening specials. Remember, if you would like to meet us, or if you were a previous patient and you want to learn about working with us, see what's different about the clinic, learn about the pricing, that type of thing, we're doing a mini, I'm going to call it an open door. It's not an open house. There's not a lot of food. There's not a party or anything. It's just the staff here hanging out, relaxed. We'll have coffee in here. It's just to get to know us and to learn about working with us. That's from 3 to 6 p.m. on Thursday. So if you want to come check us out, say hi, get a MIC-B during that time. So if you have a later work day and can't get here until after 5, Thursday would be a great time to get a MIC-B. And we're even going to have the Vitality booth open then. It's a 30-minute time slot, so only 2 people can get in. But if you would like to come see us, have a cup of coffee and chat with us. The other thing I want to mention before I get into my talk for tonight is I think it's a big thing. So you guys know I'm working with Dr. Ken Berry here at the clinic. He's the supervising physician that is working with me, or I'm going to call him collaborating physician, not supervising, because I don't need much supervision at this point in my career. But we're going to start quarterly-ish, free to the community, open Q&As. They're going to be in person. So the first one of those is happening January 28th, Tuesday, January 28th at 6 p.m. at the Dickson County Public Library. Dr. Kim Berry and I believe Nisha will be there too, just doing open Q&As, answering questions and having a good time meeting people. Now, there's a limited amount of seating there. So if you want to come, you want to be there a little bit before 6 p.m. or as close to 6 p.m. as possible. When the room's full, then we're done. If no one comes, then we're just going to be live online doing Q&A. So please join us on January 28th, 6 p.m., Dickson County Public Library. The Dickson building for the library is housed. All right, so let's dive into the paper that I wanted to talk to you about. So this is a special treat for me. This is my paper. I wrote it. So you guys may remember that I was a crazy person, and for the last 4 months, I've been doing a certification course in addition to Dickson Medical Associates practice and starting up ClearPath. Yes, I know I will try never to do that much stuff to myself again. But as part of this certification course, they challenged us and gave us the assignment of writing a paper worthy of a scientific journal. Now, whether mine is or not, I don't know. They felt like it was potentially publishable, but I have to tell you that more than it getting published, it was just an honor to showcase some of the work that we've done here at the clinic, helping people get healthy. So I chose to do a case report, and this is a case report of a female that came to see me. And just so you can see, I'm going to on and off share my screen. I really did write this. So case report here, all written out. It's reversal of hypertension in a postmenopausal woman who also had metabolic syndrome, had no clue we had metabolic syndrome until she came to see me. You can see all my nice little qualifications and then the abstract that goes there along it. along with it. So I'm going to pop back off so you don't have to stare at my beautiful writing there. But hypertension or high blood pressure, it is one of the top chronic diseases here in the US. It is a pretty rampant disease, if I'm honest. It is also a component of metabolic syndrome, which is something not everybody may realize. So what is metabolic syndrome? Well, it's this mixture of symptoms and mixture of diagnoses that put you at high risk for diabetes, for cardiovascular disease. At one point, it was called metabolic or syndrome X. So like X is in, you really don't want to have this. It's a bad thing when you develop syndrome X or metabolic syndrome. But hypertension is one of the diagnosis that is part of that. Now, hypertension itself, believe it or not, still is up for debate as to what is the root cause of it. What is truly causing the high blood pressure? And when you research this online, you're going to find mostly high salt intake and poor diet and sedentary lifestyle. Well, those are all contributing factors, but they're not root causes as to the true reason for hypertension. It was over oh goodness, over 30, 40 years ago, I have it in here in the exact writing, that it was proposed that elevated insulin and insulin resistance was actually at the root cause of hypertension. And I, for one, believe that elevated insulin and insulin resistance is at the root cause of many, many health conditions that are out there, chronic health conditions, not just hypertension. But this was proposed as over 30 years ago by Gerald Raven. He published his idea. It's been republished in the literature multiple times. And my case study is backing up what Gerald Raven found. So let's talk a little bit first. How do we define hypertension? And this is defined by the American College of Cardiology and the American Heart Association. And that's when your systolic, or that top number of your blood pressure, is above 130, or your diastolic, or that bottom number of your blood pressure, is above 80. Yeah, so 130 over 80 is how they define it. And it's consistently. So it's not a single reading. You should never be diagnosed with hypertension off of a single blood pressure reading. We all have bad days. We all have stressful moments. But if you're consistently seeing that blood pressure run above that, that is hypertension. And the main risk factors, there are some genetics. As we age, our blood pressure tends to go up. Smoking is known to cause or be directly linked to hypertension, alcohol use, obesity, the sedentary lifestyle, those kind of things. It is a component of metabolic syndrome, and it is a major risk factor for heart disease and stroke, which are #1 killers here in the US and worldwide. So notoriously, this American College of Cardiology and American Heart Association has listed 2 predominant dietary or lifestyle interventions as the #1 things that people should do to reverse or treat hypertension. The first is that of the Mediterranean diet, and the second is the DASH diet. And it's meant to dash out hypertension by cutting sodium and cutting fat. So both of these diets, they are encouraging low salt whole foods. They're also encouraging a higher carbohydrate approach because of the vegetable intake and the healthy whole grains that they're encouraging to bring in here. And they're consistent with the US dietary patterns that are currently published and out there for Americans and what we're supposed to be living by and abiding by. And here was when I came to the realization of, okay, this is the pattern of dietary things that the American US has put out, the guidelines have put out for Americans to follow. And if you look at the patterns of diets since the dietary patterns were first published in the late 70s, early 80s, the amount of fat and salt has come down. But what has went up is the intake of highly processed refined foods, and in that, carbohydrates. Those have went up. There's also been an increase of things like vegetable oils, seed oils, and oils that I consider to be inflammatory, and a reduction of animal fats, things like lard, butter, and other fats that I consider very, very healthy. So we've seen that pattern change in the US with the dietary guidelines, but we haven't seen a change in chronic conditions. We've seen them go up and up. And like I said, it was over 30 years ago that, or it was in 1988 to be exact, which is over 30 years ago. I won't tell you how I know that that's over 30 years ago, but you can probably guess. So he proposed that it was linked to insulin, this insulin resistance. And so now let's get into the case study and see Oh, let's add it to the stage. All right, so this is my case study. It comes from a semi-rural general primary care and obesity medicine practice, i.e. my practice. And in my practice, I see patients 18 years of age or older with a body mass index of 30 or higher for weight management. Now, this was before I went to ClearPath Medical. So before I went to ClearPath Medical, I saw on average around 350 individual unique patients in a month, and I co-managed patients with their primary care. Approximately half, or actually 3/4 of the patients that I saw for weight management also had the diagnosis of hypertension. So this individual, we're going to call her Miss B. She presented, she's 67 years old, postmenopausal, works as a daycare, came in to work on her diet. She had struggled to maintain a comfortable weight from around the age of 40. She had also previously, or PCP had previously said she had sleep apnea, rheumatoid arthritis, fatty liver, depression, and hypertension. And I have to tell you, this is a pretty typical pattern that I see in the weight management. This is not an outlier. This is what I see walk through the doors every day. Her family history is mainly significant for rheumatoid arthritis and certain cancers, not a lot of heart disease in her family. And she was on a total of 8 medications when she came in to see me. 2 of those were for hypertension. I asked her why she wanted to lose weight, and her reasons for losing weight is she came in feeling like her weight was affecting her ability to move easier, to move faster. She wanted to take less medications. She acknowledged that she had rheumatoid arthritis and hypertension, and she thought that eating the wrong foods were contributing to her condition. She previously tried many other things and had not been successful at weight loss. So one of the things I do when patients first come in is look at their dietary intake. And this is all stuff I do in my head. I don't type it out in a computer. I just calculate it. So this part here where you're looking at the eating patterns and food choices, that was given to me by the patient. And it looks like the pretty standard American diet. So in the morning, she would have some cereal or some low-fat yogurt. Pretty typical. She would eat lunch at her school. And if you know school lunches, they're put out by the dietary guidelines: lean protein, vegetable, fruit, and a starch. Dinner would be some meat and some starch. Dry cereal as snacking during the day. Hey, she worked at a daycare. This is things we're giving the kids there. And had sodas or sweet teas throughout the day for her beverage. And when I break it down into macronutrients, remember we have 3 primary macronutrients. There's actually 4 alcohol, but I don't count it because it really doesn't give us any nourishment whatsoever. But if you look at the macronutrient breakdown, she was consuming around 45 grams of protein in a day, 300 grams of carbohydrate in a day, and around 30 grams of fat. If you add up her calories, it's all coming in around 1,800 or just under 1,800 calories in a day typically, which is pretty average. It's not a very low calorie, but it's not a high calorie at all. It is a very low fat diet. This is textbook what the national guidelines say for a dietary intake. Other than they probably want her to have a little bit more veggie, like 1 or 2 of those. So with her whenever patients come in initially, we do height, weight, the biometric screening of their weight. So it gives me their body fat, muscle mass, things of that nature. But we took all of those and we looked at markers of insulin resistance. And these are a lot of things that I do behind the scenes when I see a patient. And we also had lab work that had been done 7 years prior to our first consult as well. So we took, you can see waist circumference, waist and hip, height to weight, her body mass index. These blood work, the glucose, the triglycerides, the HDL, those were all taken from before the blood work that was 7 years earlier. And then the hypertension, she did have that. And then taking the triglycerides and looking at some different index ratios to see if we have insulin resistance metabolic syndrome. And these, if you're looking at the low risk, that would become like your reference range to say, I don't have it. And then this was before we did any intervention there. And she had all of these markers as being positive, except for, no, even that one. We had all of them as being positive for metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance type thing. Now I'm going to go back to just my face on the screen because I don't want to bore you with all of the words, and I might be looking over here a little bit. So at that point, when I sat down and talked with Ms. B, I said, hey, you've got all these markers here. You've tried everything else. You have this inflammatory condition. I really think you should try a carbohydrate restricted diet. And she said, let's go for it. Let me dive in. I've tried all these other things. I want rid of this hypertension. I want to feel better. And so she did. And in our starter diet, the first 2 weeks, we have people restrict carbs down to 20 grams of carbohydrate or less. And we give them a minimum protein amount that we want them to hit. And for her, her minimum protein goal was that 65 grams was the minimum that I wanted her to eat. And I did not have her count fat grams. If it was naturally in the food she was eating, we did not restrict that. Knowing that she had high blood pressure and that people generally respond quite quickly, I did ask her to, hey, be monitoring your blood pressure, be watching for signs and symptoms of low blood pressure, like dizziness when you get up and down, that kind of thing. And also, if you have low blood pressure readings, call me immediately. We need to make adjustments. Lastly, supplement with electrolytes, and those need to be sugar-free electrolytes, but you need more salt when you're starting to restrict carbs because your body forces out sodium, potassium, magnesium, all of that kind of stuff. So we asked her to supplement those. So 1 month after seeing her for her initial consultation, she had already lost close to 12 to 15 pounds, somewhere around there. That's pretty amazing. 1 month in, 12 to 15 pounds. She was feeling good, except for she was getting some lightheadedness, dizziness every once in a while. And I asked her to check her blood pressure. She called me back the next day and her blood pressure had tanked out, bottomed down low. And so we deprescribed her first medicine within the first month of seeing her, which is pretty awesome. So as we keep going down, 2 months in, she continued to lose more weight. We're now down close to 20 pounds down 2 months in. Her blood pressure been stable since removing the blood pressure and medicine, the HCTZ. And she was excited to report 2 things that just thrilled, I'd say, the pants off me, but I kept my pants on. So it thrilled me a lot when she told me these. So one, she had self-started exercise. I didn't tell her to exercise. I actually tell people to wait 6 weeks to exercise. She self-initiated it. Why? Because she felt good. Remember, this lady has an autoimmune condition. She has rheumatoid arthritis. And so for her to self-initiate exercise on her own was huge. But the other thing thrilled me even more. In that first 2 months, within the first 2 months of seeing me, she had went in to see her rheumatologist, and her inflammatory markers went from the highest inflammatory markers that I have seen in 20 years of practice to normalized. That's why she felt so good. That's why she could go exercise, because her inflammation was down to the point that she felt like moving. And guys, that's why I do what I do, to see people make these changes and to see them feel better. Yes. And so if you need to make changes, be encouraged that you can see improvement in as little as 30 days. In 2 months, a huge improvement. And with this lady, we keep going. Now, her story, I've seen her for 16, 18 months at this point. And she didn't always lose massive amounts of weight, which is pretty typically. So over the next 6 months, we see the weight loss kind of slow down, still going, but slow, steady. And that's pretty typical, but slow and steady still wins the race. At the end of 16 months, she had lost a total of 26.9 kilograms. So that turns into 60 pounds roughly. In America, we use that. Her visceral fat, that's the fat that's stored inside of the liver and around the pancreas, that kind of thing. It had decreased by 7 points, which is huge. She had lost a total of 8.7% body fat. Great. And she had lost 20.4 centimeters from her waist. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous things. At the end of 16 months, she was off of every single medicine that she walked in my door on. Off all the blood pressure medicines, off the pravastatins. Okay, wait, I just lied. I need to go back to the thing. It wasn't all of them, all the ones that I wanted her rid of. She is still on some medicines for the autoimmune condition, so I don't want to lie. I will. Let me start re-sharing my screen again. So remember this graph of metabolic syndrome of all the markers. So first column here, all the markers of metabolic syndrome. This is where she was before her intervention with called therapeutic carbohydrate restriction. This is where she was after the 16 months. Remember, this is your reference range to look at. So all but I think one had come into complete normal range. Let me see if I can find it. No, maybe they all did. Yeah. Yep. So they were all in there. So she had reversed all of her markers of metabolic syndrome. And I want to show you the medicine list, but to do that, I don't want you to see all my lovely scrolling that I got to do. I really worked hard and made a whole bunch of graphs. Maybe next week we'll get to the discussion because I don't want to bore you too much with today. All right, here we go. This is what I want to show you. So I had to stage. There we go. This is her medicines before, and this is her medicines after. So she was able to stop antidepressant medications or anti-anxiety medicines, one blood pressure medicine, an anti-inflammatory medicine. She remains on her vitamin D, which I highly recommend that she did not need any nitroglycerin, she was on the pravastatin. Now, I can tell you the next month after that 16 months, so at month 17, 18, that is gone now. That one is off. The lisinopril hydrochlorothiazide, which is two different blood pressure medicine together, gone. She has also since discontinued the sertraline, I believe. And this was for the rheumatoid arthritis, and she's since changed to other medications. I kept up with all of her key biomarkers so you can see that her weight, and this is in kilograms because this paper was written for scientific journals and you have to do that in kilograms. But this is going from 108 kilograms down to 73 kilograms, which is roughly about 60 pounds of weight loss. Different blood work that was done here. So 2016 was the stuff that had been remotely done. And then these are labs that were taken by her rheumatologist. And so what you can see right here, this was right before I started working with her, her liver functions were elevated. If we go just a couple months down the road, they're normal, which is awesome, meaning she's getting rid of that visceral fat type things. This is an inflammatory marker that was taken right before our intervention because I started working with her in April of 2023. You can see it went from 12.2 down to 24. So it essentially normalized anything. It's supposed to be less than 8. So she was high normalized. This is the marker. I have not seen this unless someone is acutely ill in the hospital, bad shape, horrible things. Her creatinine kinase was over 2,000. And in the month's time between working with me and not, so I guess it was 4 months time, not 2 months time. So 4 months time, it had went from that high to normal, which is awesome. Hemoglobin, and that's just regular blood counts. Look at this. So this is, you get a standard cholesterol panel when you go into your doctor's office. Her fasting glucose went from 108 to 84 fasting. Total cholesterol actually dropped. So not everybody's cholesterol goes up on a low carb or ketogenic diet. Hers definitely did not. So her total cholesterol dropped from 180 to 160. Her triglycerides, which is a big, big marker for metabolic syndrome and risk for diabetes, dropped from 192 to 97. Her HDL went up. HDL is the protective cholesterol. And this is a common thing I see all the time in carbohydrate restricted diets, but it went from 45 to 63. And her LDL actually went down. And this was when she decided to come off of medication. Now, these are my lovely diagrams. Don't you love that I was able to do this? I'm like patting myself on the back. It's been over 20 years since I've been in college, guys. So I'm impressed that I pulled this off. So this is, if you look at her body composition, you can see from the start to the finish that it consistently went down. This is total weight. This is body fat percentage, and this is muscle mass. So with her weight loss, she lost no muscle. That is huge. Most weight loss plans, people consistently lose muscle at a rate equivalent to their fat loss. And working with us, doing our plan, which was a protein-focused, low carbohydrate, therapeutic carbohydrate restricted diet, her muscle mass remained the same and her fat mass went down. And this is pretty common too. You see the body fat will go down. And as the body fat goes down, the body water goes up. That's a pretty typical finding. And then we see the decrease of her visceral fat over time and the blood pressure. And every time that she dipped down, those were times that she had medications deprescribed. So she was on 3 different medications. One was a combo, but we had to split it out to break it up. So this was removal of one medicine of blood pressure. This one is one medicine of blood pressure, and that one's another one. So maybe next week we will get into the science behind why this intervention works, and I can present that part of my paper so that you can see it. But I wanted to give you the case study so you could see a real person that we worked with that really made changes, took no medications for weight loss, did it all with nutrition and lifestyle, and completely changed the trajectory of her health. She still has an autoimmune condition, but it is so much better. She still has some maybe depression from time to time, but is well controlled on less medication. I am so proud of her. And I would work with anyone who wants to put that much effort in to change their lives. And if you want to work with us, give us a call. We're accepting new patients to work with weight. If your goal is to get rid of blood pressure, if your goal is to get rid of your diabetes, if it is just to make sure that your health is optimized and that you're getting the best information and have the time to sit down and talk with a provider to learn that information, give us a call. We're licensed in 21 states. You can call us at 615-441-4499, or you can email us at contact@clearpathmedical.net. And I've posted the states many times on our social media, so you can check that out. So remember, if you're in the Dixon area, stop by this week for a McB or a Vitality booth. If you're interested in working with us and you're in this local area, Thursday, we're doing the open doors from 3 to 6. Come by, meet us, meet the staff, and join us. And if you're in the area on January 28th at 6 o'clock, come to the Dixon County building where the library is at for an open Q&A with Dr. Ken Berry and I. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And let me know what you think. I think this lady's pretty amazing. She's done great. So until next week, stay happy, stay healthy.